Welcome to the Renee Richards Show with your host, psychic medium Renee Richards.
Hey, how you doing? Today is Tuesday, the 19th of November, and it is 10:36 a.m. I am Renee Richards, a psychic medium, and this is the Renee Richards Show. And I have a guest, Alan Tiller, here today, and we're going to give him a few minutes to Skype in. Hopefully he will be able to. If he doesn't, well, then we'll end the show and we'll do it another time because we're easy going. I'm going to play this and give him some time, and then I'm going to come back and talk about him. I am. All right, so today we do have Alan Tiller with us. He is a paranormal investigator, and I've known Alan for probably 5 years or so, and I want to remind people I'm not taking psychic medium calls, but if you have a question and you want to ask that is a paranormal question or about Alan, please do. It's 347-677-0606. Now, let me see here. I have notes everywhere. So Alan Tiller is from South Australia, and he is a founder of Eidolon Paranormal and SA Paranormal and Haunts of Adelaide. He's a paranormal investigator. So we're going to bring Alan on, and he's got I have a whole paper on all these wonderful things about him. His mission is to provide factual information and research to investigate alleged paranormal phenomena with a view of finding natural or logical explanation for said phenomena. If one cannot be found, we then set about documenting the phenomena to the best of our ability. And I think that is really important and very interesting that we just don't classify everything as paranormal. And I really feel that way. Yes, I can see spirit, but I've done some little investigations myself. But look, Alan. Let me see. I'm unmuting you. Alan?
Hello.
Hi, how are you? This is the first time I've heard your voice.
Yes, it is. And we've been kind of emailing since 2009.
I know. It's been amazing. It really has. I look back, like when I first met you, and I remember looking at your website and all that kind of things, and how much all that has really changed, because you founded it. Am I saying it right? How do you?
Some people say Eidolon, but I actually prefer the pronouncement of Eidolon. I think it just sounds better myself.
It is. It's a beautiful, beautiful word, and I never ever could appreciate that till about 6 months ago. I went and I actually went to a website where they interpret it, and I could hear what it sounded like, and then I knew. And then I went and looked up. Well, you have it on your website what it actually means, and then I was I was hooked. I was hooked then. Let's see. What is it? What is it now?
It's a Greek word, and
right.
It means it actually has many meanings. It means spirit. It means spirit double.
Yes.
Yeah. There's a few different meanings.
And the thing that I found interesting when I read that on your website was the thing that it is an astral double. And I often talk about astral doubles that we create ourselves. Like when we have a loved one that dies, sometimes we miss them and we love them so much that we will actually create a figure that is an entity, but it's of our loved one. So I have seen very interesting, or a phantom double of the human form. I don't know. That's freaky, Alan.
The name itself, I was actually using it probably a couple of years before I made the team in 2007. And it came about because a friend in the States, she actually saw herself while she was working, so she saw a doppelganger, which is another area in paranormal, and I was looking up different words for a team name, and Eidolon sort of came up, and it just stuck, and it's stuck ever since, and so everything that I've done has been built around that name and what that name means to me, kind of thing.
It's a beautiful name. I really, really like it. And it's really odd. I've also seen myself as very, very old. Darn it. I've also seen myself as very, very young, like when I was a teenager. So I've seen both of those. It's really, really odd. And what kind of experiences have you had what made you want to do this? I mean, did you just wake up one morning and say, I'm interested in this? Did something happen? What's background for that?
I've always had an interest in the paranormal. I remember as a child, my parents had a couple of books that belonged to my grandparents that were about the Devil's Triangle. And I used to read them all the time, and ghost stories and things like that. And it just kind of expanded from there, got into shows like The X-Files and all those kind of mystery and paranormal stuff. And I got into genealogy in a big way, and I spent a lot of time in cemeteries, and a few things had happened previously to that, spiritual ghost-wise. But then with the genealogy and the history aspect came into it, and then the three things, genealogy, history, and the paranormal, just all combined and became pretty much my life, really. But the focus hasn't always been on just ghosts either. Like, I try and cover as broad a spectrum as I can, which is one of the things I find with a lot of paranormal teams. They tend to be, they have the word paranormal in their name, but they are specifically ghost hunters. Whereas I go more of the paranormal. So I look into not just ghosts, UFOs, cryptozoology, a little bit of conspiracy stuff, religious things as well, like the stigmata. I've done a big blog series about the stigmata and how it affects people, and even just the common person who isn't even religious and things like that. So, I see a broader spectrum.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting too. What is the deal with South Australia with the state library there? What is that? Your connection with that? Were you inducted?
What happened there was the National Library of Australia, which is basically, it's in our capital, Canberra. They decided that they were going to put together a giant database of all the websites around Australia that have basically accurate historical information that they could then store in a huge database for future generations. And somehow they came across the Eidolon Paranormal website and read all the history that I'd written up and all that kind of stuff, and asked me if I'd like to be included in the what's called the Pandora archive. So you know, I was very, very honoured to be even thought of in that manner, that, you know, my writing could be there forever, really. And then the Haunts of Adelaide blog, which started last year, within 2 months of starting to write it, one of the ladies from the State Library of South Australia had started reading it, and she put it forward to the Pandora archive. So now I have 2 things in the Pandora archive, and as far as I'm aware, we're still the only paranormal team in Australia that's been included, which, you know, is a huge honour in itself as well.
I agree. When I saw that, I was very impressed. Now, some of the stigmata and all that fascinates me. How do you go about writing or investigating something like that? Do you just do test case studies, or, you know, that you read about, or do you actually interview people, or how does all that stuff work? I mean,
so far with the stigmata thing, stigmata has always been an interest of mine. I've always had an interest in angels and saints and religious things like that. And the stigmata just seemed like a good thing to start writing about. So I started looking into stories about it and looking into the saints that had suffered. Well, some people say suffer, some people say blessed. And then I started finding that there were common people that weren't religious. There were even Buddhists that suffered stigmata, which in itself is just bizarre. So the blog became kind of the historical aspect of it. I'm still yet to meet anyone that actually has suffered from it, which is a goal of mine, to eventually meet someone who has stigmata and just, you know, try and study them, try and work out why it happens, what they're feeling, and document it. I don't think there's been a great deal of that done in the world so far.
Now, some of those stigmatas, is that, I've heard, I don't know if this is true, that some bleed from the spots where the crucifixion of Christ, right? That's what that's all about on the cross? Basically you would bleed from, and it varies a little bit, which is a little bit unusual, but it's generally from your feet, where the nail would have went through Jesus' 2 feet, and it can either be the wrists or the palm of the hands, depending on the person. But the other thing that is really important to the stigmata, genuine sufferers will have spots around their forehead from the crown of thorns, and they'll have the whip marks across their back, the flagellation. So it's all of those things combined, plus they feel the pain, and they have the pain in their side where the spear punctured through from the Roman soldier. Oh my gosh! Because I know somebody who is actually was my date for years, and she's always said that she had the stigmata, and I just wonder if maybe it was an ego or something, but maybe she did, but I never ever saw any of those things on her, so I don't know.
Well, there's at least.
Can you have some, but not all?
Yeah, you can actually not even bleed at all, but just have the pain. Generally, though, as well, you get visions of Christ on the cross as he dies. You might get a thing called biolocation, which is you'll be, say, sitting at home, and someone that you know will see you down at the shops at the exact same time, and they'll phone you and say, I just saw you in the shops, you didn't say hello, and you'll be like, I'm sitting at home, I don't know what you're talking about. So there's all these other things. When you look into certain saints, generally, like someone, say, like Padre Pio, who was really well known for his stigmata, there's at least 20 other supernatural things that go in with his stigmata, including biolocation, levitation. He had miraculous healings. He could foresee the future, and just things like that as well. It's one big combination of things together.
Right, that's amazing. So, have you ever, in your, all your little journeys around and everything, I'm so laid back, have you ever gotten really scared? I mean, have you ever read anything and gone, oh my God, I hope I never see that or feel that, or seen anything that, made you want to go?
Surprisingly, not yet. I'm not looking forward to the moment that it happens, because I know it's going to happen on camera at some point. You know, and then everyone will be able to see me, you know, be scared. But so far, no, I haven't really been scared by anything. There hasn't really been any. I mean, I've been in places that are notoriously nasty, and nothing has really happened to me. So whether I'm protected by something, I don't know. But
and everybody, you have to know, Alan is tall and he's a big man. So to see him running would really be something, or be scared. He does look kind of menacing. Like if you saw him in the dark or something, you'd be, ah. I mean, he's just big, you know, but he's very sweet. But that's funny. One time I was going through a prison in Montana, and it was just me and my husband. We were looking at it was the old Deer Lodge prison, and a spirit came up to me and whispered in my ear, and then he laughed and laughed and laughed, and then I saw him, but he scared the hell out of me before I realized what was happening. So some of that, it seems like it's actually verbal even before you see them, but it's what is crypto, whatever that was you were just talking about?
Cryptozoology is the study of animals and creatures. The scientific version of it is animals that maybe are undiscovered or have become extinct, new species of things. But when you get into the paranormal world, cryptozoology would include Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, those kind of creatures. So, you know, that's part of the paranormal. In Australia, we have what's called the bunyip, and another version of it called the yowie, which is basically a smaller version of the American Bigfoot.
So what do you think about those? Do you believe in those?
I've seen enough stuff from some friends who have actually gone out and hunted for them. I think they're out there. And, you know, Australia also has a lot of... Yeah, we have a lot of black cat sightings in the Grampians in Victoria, which apparently are cats that were brought over by the American military in World War II as mascots, and somehow got free and have bred in the wild, and they see them there all the time. Now that also falls into cryptozoology because it's an animal out of its natural habitat.
Oh, that's amazing. So what are they, giant black cats roaming around?
Yeah, panthers, basically. Giant panthers.
Really?
Yeah.
I really believe in that stuff. I believe in, I know for sure I believe in the Bigfoot and anything like that. To me, it would be ignorant to think that something like that couldn't survive. You know, to say that we're the only thing, that's not going to happen with me. I believe that there's other things, but I also believe, like, I believe in fairies and elementals and all kinds of things. So.
I'm also a very open-minded person. You know, there's so many possibilities out there. You know, I've often said to people that, you know, you look at the amount of life that's on this planet, that, you know, there's millions and millions of species. You know, there's stuff that we wouldn't even know about in the bottom of the ocean. So what else could be out there in the universe? You know, it's just a huge canvas of, if you can imagine it, it probably exists. Yeah.
So when you are investigating things, do you guys use ghost boxes?
Ghost boxes as in the Radio Shack hack kind of thing?
Yeah, you guys,
I'm actually not a fan of that particular device myself.
Now, I have heard pros and cons for that, so tell me why you don't like it.
Basically, the original... the original was called a Frank's box, and then it was a ghost hack and all these other different names. Basically, it's all the same thing. Basically, it's a radio that skips through frequencies and is supposed to pick up spirit voices in the white noise between radio stations and that kind of thing. Now, a gentleman in America kind of reinvented it a little bit, made it work a little bit faster, made it so it can scan backwards and that kind of thing. And, of course, it's become very popular because of a television show in the States. But my problem with it is that as soon as you put it in a Faraday cage, which is a little box that is basically, for an example, a microwave oven. A microwave oven is a Faraday cage. If you were to get your spirit box and stick it inside that microwave oven and close the door and start asking questions, I guarantee you will not get an answer from that spirit box because every radio signal can't get to it. So for me, I don't believe that it's a piece of equipment that is actually genuine in that aspect. So I mean, I have one. I've experimented with it a ton of different ways, and I've only ever had one experience with it that I actually believed was genuine, and it was so quick, and we didn't actually get to record it, so I can't go back and just make sure. So, for me, it's not really something that I would use.
Right. I've heard pros and cons about it. I've heard people say that a lot of people have said it is like a Ouija board, and it opens up to lower entities. And I don't have anything like that. I mean, all I have a digital recorder. I think that's really all you need. But do you need all that kind of stuff? Those K2 or A1 or Super Duper?
My basic investigating kit is basically a night vision video camera. I actually prefer a full spectrum camera, and I got mine from a company here in Australia called Apparition Technologies. So my basic kit is that full spectrum camera, a Zoom audio recorder, and I have a laser pen which shoots out a laser grid that if anything walks through the laser grid, you'll be able to see it in a three-dimensional form. And that's basically all you really need. You don't, your body is the best piece of equipment you have for feeling things that are out there. All the other gadgets, they're wonderful. They do all kinds of crazy stuff. And a lot of people are into the EMF meters. I mean, even myself, I used to use them quite a lot. But my direction with EMF is to determine where EMF hotspots are in a location before I investigate, so I know that I'm not going to be walking around and getting a reading and then go, wow, I found a ghost, but it's actually an electrical problem or a power line above your head or something like that.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I've seen that often with people. They'll say, "Oh, there's a ghost here," and I'm like, "Yeah, baloney," because I don't feel it or see it, but I don't say anything. So now, do you usually work with a psychic or a medium?
I've done a little bit of work with psychics and mediums, not a great deal, except that just recently I finished filming a television show. And that featured two psychics. So I actually got to work with a gentleman called Ian Lawman, who was on a show called Most Haunted in England, and an Australian lady called Raylene Cable, who's been on a few TV shows over here. So, we got to investigate a few different places and work together, and I got to learn quite a lot about how they approach, how they feel, what they see, and those kind of things. And it was actually a really good learning experience. I saw things in a different light because, I don't have a psychic in my team and I'm not psychic myself. But,
right.
Yeah, and, we were getting validations where one of them would say something and, we would get something else that would validate what they'd said. So, that was always a good thing. So it kind of, I know, the way they back themselves in what they believe and what they say was, just opened my mind just that little bit more. It's opened up all new ideas for me to approach. I have a friend here not far away, Kathy, from a team called Eidolon Paranormal, and I'm about to start doing some experiments with her in the next few months, and hopefully we can film them and stick them up on YouTube and see if we actually get any of the results we're hoping for.
The thing I really like about the Dead Files, that show on the Travel Channel, have you ever seen that?
Yeah, there pretty much wouldn't be a paranormal show I haven't seen.
Okay, yeah, probably. You're like
I'm
you're
a
like
bit
me.
Of a fanboy.
I'm always looking, and so that one I like the way the psychic medium goes in first and gets the information. I don't know how fake it is or real it is, but I think that I know that they always blow it up out of proportion. I know they make it bigger than it is, and that's just part of TV. But I really like the way she works about her going in first, and then the investigator, he finds out all the back things. And I think that's an interesting combination, the way they work together. What do you think? Do you like that show too? Because that's kind of what you're talking about, where the psychic medium can see all this and feel all this, but the confirmation, how do you validate it? Because that's one thing, man. I want to validate everything I see and I say. So. And
that's kind of the point of investigating, is to get validation. Now, a psychic like yourself, you'll be able to see things and then go back and look up stuff, whereas I work the other way around. I actually start with the history of the place first, find out things like events that may have been really emotional, like a murder or just, someone having a heart attack and dying. I find out people's names that have died there or have lived there for a long time or were emotionally attached, and then I'll set up my EVP questions around the history that I've learned and hope that I get some kind of validation from what I'm asking. So say I was to walk into a house you'd lived in and you'd passed away in, and I'd say, Renee, are you here with me? And you might reply, yes, I am, Alan, and then that's validation for me because I've asked specifically for you and you've answered me.
Right, yeah. And that's really important. Do you get many validations?
Surprisingly, we don't get a great deal of stuff most of the time. I think part of it is that I'm very particular and I'm very skeptical about a lot of things. I don't believe flashing lights on any device is any form of communication. I think it's just flashing lights on the device. It's not telling you anything. So unless I get an actual voice or I see an actual apparition, you're not really getting much of anything at the moment. Like, I just think right at this point in time, we're missing something really important. We're not doing something quite right, but we're not that big a step away from actually getting something that validates things to a point that people aren't going to be able to be skeptical. The thing is with the paranormal, everyone seems to say it's a pseudoscience and all these kind of things, but they also forget that there are education and research facilities in a lot of universities around the world right now with parapsychologists doing tests on telekinesis and all these other kind of things, and they are using genuine scientific method in laboratory testing and getting results. I don't know. Yeah, and I don't know if you've ever read about a lot of hospitals, and I think the last one I read about was in Los Angeles. They'd started to put these little markers up on the roof in the surgeries, in the operating rooms, and when people had passed away, these little markers were hidden in the ceiling. You couldn't see them, and the people would pass away, they'd be brought back to life, and they'd be interviewed a few days later, and they'd say, oh, I saw these little markers on the ceiling. And, of course, how do they know that they're there?
Right. There you go. There's your proof. And that's good right. Proof, too. I'm all for that. I think that's really, really important. And I think people, they're starting to change the way they look at things. Their minds are opening up about it. But there still is a lot of skepticism, that's for sure. And there has to be. It just has to be. I people all the time that they'll say, here's my first name. I'm not even going to pay for the reading because I don't want you to know anything about me, and then give me the reading, and then I'll pay you. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Well, back in the day when I wasn't doing that many readings, I would do it that way. But now I can't do it that way. But I can see the point of it. They want to know that it's real. And that's why it's so important, I think, as a psychic medium to be, and a paranormal investigator, to be able to validate information. Either the history of the house or you capture something. But I think it would be interesting to see you do that and to videotape that with a medium and get the two together so that you can prove off of each other or correlate it and see what happens. But there's a lot of things changing. I mean, people's views on death and dying are changing too. So
yeah, that's correct. And we're not that big a leap away from actually being able to communicate properly with the other side. One of the theories that has been put forward to me before, and I don't know how we would ever actually test this theory, is that there's some kind of spiritual being or some kind of veil that the spirits can't come through, like there's like a list of rules for them to communicate. We tend to find that it's really hard to get anything on video, and it seems as though they hide from video. So one of my future plans is to turn video cameras on before we even get to a site, not even mention we've got the cameras, have them hidden in objects, and just walk in and place the object down, everyday objects like, say, a can of Coke with a little spy camera in it, and just leave it sitting there, and then come back. Don't even talk about it with the other investigators. Just put it down like you just had a drink out of it, and walk away, If the spirit's there, they don't know the camera's there. Hopefully, they'll appear on camera.
Yeah,
I
that's
think,
a good idea.
Because I think people forget that these were people that were alive. So if they're there, they can hear us as well as, see us and everything. So while we're all standing around in our little group meeting before we have our investigation saying, we're going to put this camera here and we're going to put this microphone there, would there be a possibility that they're sitting there listening going, well, I'm not going to walk in that room now because they've just said they've put a camera in there. So I'll avoid that part and I'll go stand over here. And when they walk away from that camera, then I'll show myself to them because I know I'm not on camera.
I know. What's up with that? I get the same thing in readings when they come to me, the family member comes to me, and they're standing right there in front of me, and then the family member will have a super, super specific question, and they will not answer it. They will not. And I'm like, you'll tell me everything else. Like, if I just let them go, they'll go on about everything. They'll tell me their name, their date, maybe what they used to do, things like that. But the minute the other loved one, the client, and they just look at me like I'm not going to do it. It's like they can only go so far. And if I ask like what it's like on the other side, they won't tell me that either. I had a friend who committed suicide who I was in Montana, and I was in California at the time, and I saw him. And I said, oh, my God, David, why am I seeing you? And he goes, I'm dead. And I go, duh. And so anyway, I go, well, what happened? And he goes, I, committed suicide. And I got everything, and then I called Montana, and I verified it. And it was all verifiable. But I asked him what happened. Where did you go? What did you do? And he said, I'm on the other side, and I'm happy. That's all he said.
Okay.
He won't give me the specifics, and so nobody will do that. They only go so far, and then it stops. So I find that really frustrating. That would drive me crazy. And so I think that it's a good thing even if you could put cameras, microphones, everything, because I do think there are things that happen that when we turn away from it, that there's things going on. That a lot of stuff seems to happen off camera is the best way to put it, really. You'll set your cameras up and the thing will happen right behind the camera. And, you've thought you've covered every aspect of the room, every angle, but it happens right in that one little corner where you haven't covered. And then, then it's just hearsay because it's your word against not actually having the evidence of it. So, and it means nothing. It means nothing. And people get so mad at me, but the truth is it means nothing. It's just like I can say I traveled to the other side, but really when I tell people that, it means nothing to them unless somehow I can verify something when, like I know another woman who also does that, and we have verified together where we have met. So we, each of us wrote it down and then sent it to each other, and it was completely the same. So do you want to take a phone call? I have somebody, I guess, that wants to ask you a question.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, we'll see who this is. 707-822. Did you have a question for Alan?
Yes. Are you there? Hello?
Yes.
Hello. Hello.
Hi. Well, I'm really not really sure. Have you come across spirits that are kind of like they don't really want to go? They're just here and they're going to stay here?
Like I said before, I'm not psychic, so I don't kind of deal in that aspect. Because I don't see them, I don't feel them, that kind of thing. So I don't have any psychic ability, so that may be a question for Renee and not for myself.
And I think that he just investigates them. He never, he doesn't send them on their way or anything that.
No, I'm just there to document their existence, to let them know that, they can still
We know you're here.
Yeah, basically. We know you're here and you can still communicate. You can talk to us, we can record it, maybe send a message on. I'm not there to move them on. I don't do any of the kind of things with like sage smoke or any of that kind of stuff. I'm literally there just to document anything that happens.
And then the question I also have is, do you find that there's more hauntings or that kind of activities in certain areas, like in certain countries, or is there more of it over here? Or
it's worldwide. It doesn't make a difference which country it is. I tend to find, though, that places with huge amounts of emotion tend to be more haunted. So asylums, jails, hospitals tend to be the places. Somewhere like, say, a castle. So a castle may have thousands of people go through it in a couple of centuries. So you get like an emotional imprint. And that's where the paranormal activity seems to feed from, is the emotional imprints in those kind of places.
Yeah, because I really, in my view, I'm not an investigator, but I, maybe in my own mind, I think that there aren't that many true hauntings. I think that there are more of those loop things, where it just plays over and over.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because that would be more of my question then, because I was wondering about that one.
What, the true hauntings? Go ahead, Alan.
What we would call an intelligent haunting, which would be a haunting where there's interaction. Say I ask a question, I get a reply. I ask something to touch a device, and the device goes off. So you have intelligent hauntings, which obviously would be someone who had died and does have some kind of energy or attachment where they can make things happen. And then you get the other version that you're talking about, which is like a loop, which is pretty much like, the best way to describe it is like someone sat there with a video camera and filmed that person walking through, and for some reason it just replays again and again and again.
Wow.
Yeah. That's interesting too. I've actually experienced a true haunting. Thank you for calling, hon. And that haunting was at my son's house, and that guy, he had been stabbed. No, first he was shot. Then he crawled out the front door to the tree out in the front yard, and he wasn't quite dead yet. He was screaming to the neighbor for help, and she went out with a big, huge knife and finished him off. And then when I got there, I was like, oh, my God, my son Dylan. I said, Dylan, I go, you've got a ghost in here. And I said, and this guy is really here. I mean, it's not. And you could hear him, see him. He would touch people. You would see him walk by the door. And I could really, he followed me everywhere. But even my son, who has no abilities at all, would see him going by the door, could feel him, but that would be about it. But that was an intelligent haunting. I asked him what happened. He told me about almost all these things. I got all this information from him, and that scared the heck out of me. And I asked him if he wanted to transition over to the light, and he says, no, I'll go when I'm ready. And so that really, when something like that happens, I feel, and even you can try to go ahead and push them over, but if they're not ready, they're not going. So.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
Going back to a subject we were talking about before with the afterlife and them not being able to communicate about certain aspects of it, I wrote on my blog a while ago, and I'm just going to share it on the little chat window here on the website so people can have a look for themselves.
Please do, and tell them, WW, whatever it is.
I've just put it in the little chat window on your little page here. I'm going to pronounce this. I'm going to pronounce this gentleman's name completely wrong, so forgive me for that. His name is Frederick Jurgensen. He was from the Ukraine. This gentleman was basically the godfather of the electronic voice phenomena. He went outside with a tape recorder and was trying to tape birds and heard voices between the birds. And eventually he passed away, and a lot of his followers tried to contact him, as you would. Surprisingly, when you read the link that I've put up, when you get down the bottom, you'll see that in 1987, his face actually appeared on someone's television, and they've actually started to find ways to communicate with him, and he's been telling them how life is in the afterlife. There's a few links at the bottom of the page that I've shared where it actually tells you a little bit of description about where he says that he actually is right now, which is kind of, in some aspects, like the Catholic purgatory. Really hard to explain without reading it like yourself.
Right.
But yeah, it's kind of in many ways like purgatory. It seems to be like a misty kind of area, but there are other people there with him still. Somehow he's made communication back through EVP and with this the television experiments that they've been doing, and that they are still doing it, and he is still appearing to things. So he's still in this etheric space somewhere.
Yeah, that misty nowhere land. And that's interesting, and I'm going to go read that, and then I might even do, talk about that, because I find that very fascinating. Because my whole thing is when people cross over, where do they go? I know that I've been in a nursing home for 10 years, and when people died, I saw them when they would pass, and I would see their family members, and they were always very happy. And to me, it looked like they were just going home, and I would see them go into a light and be gone. But nobody ever came and said, I went to the light or I went to heaven. No, I never heard anything like that. They were gone into this beautiful light, and it was a big expression of joy and happiness that I felt. It was overwhelming, like nothing I've ever felt in my life. And to me, I would figure that would be what it would feel like to go into the light, that immense joy that almost brought me to my knees when I would feel it. So, but then at the same time, I've heard people my husband had a near-death experience, who have nearly died, and they went to hell. They went to like a purgatory where they were just stuck and like in a box, and they said that they couldn't get out. And so I think what you believe when you pass is kind of how things are going to happen, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, but it is a whole interesting discussion about it, and how, like when you hear a lot of near-death experiences, they can be pretty much the same, but then there's always a few that are very, very different about the hell realms and stuff like that. So
yeah, and like you said, they tend to be specific to the person, their
right.
spiritual beliefs or things they may have done in their life. There are quite a lot of books out there at the moment about NDEs, as that's the paranormal term, I guess.
Yeah.
And they are actually quite interesting to read, but I don't know how we would, as investigators, investigate that aspect of the afterlife, where we go, because there just seems to be this blockage between us and them that, like you were saying earlier with your readings, that certain things they just can't seem to be able to say, they can't seem to be able to do. What it is blocking them, who knows? I mean, that would be the big question. Let's find out who's blocking them or what's blocking them, and see how we can get around that.
Yeah, or can they get through? Why can't they get through? I don't know. It's really interesting, but I do feel that. Like, I've done readings before where people have passed over, and usually it's a high emotional reading, like where a husband had died and his wife was still there with the children, and I would say, if you're here, you need to let me know you're here. And he picked up my headphones and he threw them on the floor. I said, okay, I got you. You're here. I got it loud and clear that you're here. But that's very, very rare. Very rare. Usually it's so subtle that you have to be very, very sensitive to it.
Yeah, I imagine it comes down to something to do with energy. One of the things that I've been experimenting with is things like Tesla coils and Jacob's ladders. Putting electricity into the air. You probably hear the classic paranormal investigator thing. They've walked into a location, all their batteries are charged, turn the cameras on, and the batteries drain.
Right.
And then paranormal activity seems to happen, not straight away, but generally within a few minutes or half an hour or so. And of course, the camera's batteries drain, they can't film it. So I've played around a little bit with Tesla coils and Jacob's ladders, which just basically fill the air with electricity, and so far, not much has happened, but, I think I have to try it in a few different ways, experiment with it a little bit more, maybe add some other things to the experiment, but I think it's a path to head down. One of the other big paranormal pieces of equipment at the moment is a thing called an EM pump. The EMF readers we were talking about earlier, basically they are reading electromagnetic fields, which the Earth has one, a natural one, our bodies have one, and you can actually measure them at the chakra points on your body. And what these pumps do, well, what the theory is that when a spirit manifests, it puts out EMF, electromagnetic field, and your EMF meter, say your millimeter, your K2 meter, will pick up that, and it validates that it was there. What an EM pump does is puts the EMF into the air as energy for the spirit to manifest. Now, my theory here is that we're doing this the wrong way around. My theory is that the EMF that happens when they manifest is a waste product. Basically, it's like us, we eat and we poop. So if they eat electricity, they poop EMF, basically. So I think we're doing things the wrong way around at the moment. We should be looking at things differently. But the problem tends to be that people see so many things on all these ghost television shows, and then they get stuck in this kind of doing it the same way themselves and never leaving that kind of direction. I don't want to say they don't think for themselves, because they obviously do, but they don't experiment further, and they don't try and add different aspects in, or think of something different to do. And we're at the moment trying all kinds of different things. We have ideas where we're going to try things with a thing called infrasound, which is a really, really low, below human ear level sound, but infrasound can actually cause people to see shadow people, because the vibration is so low and so slow that it vibrates the cornea in your eye and creates what looks like a shadow person. So we're going to...
Oh my God, that's interesting.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm working on an idea with a friend on how we can try and recreate in a controlled condition that kind of aspect, and see if we can make it happen every time, and then from that, construct a theory that would lead to why shadow people are there, because things such as ducted air conditioning can cause that same vibration in your eye, causing the shadow person. So maybe there's other things we haven't thought about within the way we build our homes that, we haven't taken into account, that something as simple as the air blowing under the door may be enough to cause such a low vibration that it makes our cornea vibrate and we see the shadow person.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so we're thinking outside the box in a lot of ways, and we've got a few big ideas that we're thinking of, and Karen and I are always thinking up new different things to try and things to do, and yeah, we're bringing in a lot of other teams in Australia to try and help us out with that kind of thing as well.
And Renee is his beautiful, wonderful wife. And you guys do the website together, do you? Do that work? You do the work together, right?
We investigate together. She's in my team. I do most of the website stuff and the writing stuff, but we host a thing called what we've dubbed a meetup, SA Paranormal meetups, and they used to be monthly, but they've slowed down a little bit because I've been so incredibly busy. But what it is basically we had a location which was a hotel that we used to go to once a month. Karen and I would get up and present a huge variety of paranormal topics, and the public were welcome to come along, bring their photos, bring their ideas, and share them with us. And we would, it would start out with me, say, I'd bring in a new piece of equipment, pull it to pieces, explain how it all works to everyone. Here's what it does, here's what it doesn't do, here's where, when you investigate, this is what it does and doesn't do, and this is the problems you'll have with it, that kind of thing. Karen would get up, Karen would talk about crystals, all kinds of other metaphysical stuff. We also have a huge amount of other paranormal teams involved in SA Paranormal. I won't read out the list of the full names of them because I'd be here half the night, but just a few Shadow Riders, Adelaide Shadow Hunters, Icy Paranormal, Overland Paranormal. These teams come along and they get up and present stuff that they've done as well. Plus we also all go out and investigate together, or one or two teams will go out together and investigate and experiment and bring these things back to our meetups and share it with the public. Now, we do it all for free. We don't ask anything from anyone. We've actually had a bit of a break, and we're now coming back in our hometown, Kapunda, which, by the way, has the tag of the most haunted town in Australia.
I read that. I was like, oh, what a great place to be for you,
Yeah,
and go ahead. And you do everything for free, too.
Yeah,
even investigation.
investigations are all for free. We can't prove to you that a ghost is genuinely there, so we're not going to charge you money for something that we can't prove. It's like, it's like you handing me money and me handing you back nothing at all. It's just,
Here's some air. Yeah.
Luckily for us, some very close friends of ours who run a automotive business, Skase Automotive in Kapunda here, have generously donated a lot of space in their automotive facility for us to actually start hosting our paranormal meetups again. So we will be back in January, and we will be back talking paranormal for free for everyone in South Australia to come along and have a listen.
Yeah, because we have a lot of people from Australia who listen, believe it or not, and so you can give out all that information that you want to give out for them to come and to participate in that. What is that they have to do?
Basically, what will happen is we have a Facebook page for SA Paranormal, and we'll share the date, the time, the address. I've just finished building a website as well. People just basically come along, bring a chair, bring photos they want to share, stories. We'll present a few things. We'll show some videos of things that we've filmed or photos, and then people can get up and tell us their stories or ask us questions or ask any of the other paranormal investigation teams questions. One of the biggest nights we had 10 different teams there, which was about 30 paranormal investigators who've all been doing this for a couple of years or more. So, it's a huge wealth of experience and knowledge and stories that, the general public are welcome to come along and listen and get involved. My plan for next year, which I haven't actually told Karen about, so she's probably listening right now, is my plan for next year. Hi, Karen. Is to start recording the paranormal meetups, maybe on video or even just an audio recording of it, and put it on the internet as a podcast so it can be shared with an even wider audience, because we do get a lot of really interesting questions and really interesting discussions that could be discussed further with a broader audience than what's there on the night with us.
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting. The bigger, the better, the more information. I just think that you're going to do so well with this. You just amaze me with everything that you know and how professional you sound. You're so informative. And, the thing about, I did want to add one thing about the, the cornea moving and all that. I was also told that, I see color, and I see colors that other people don't see. And that they say that the reason why there are certain people that see that color, the extra colors, is because they have more rods in their eyes. So really, is it something spiritual, or is it a combination, So it's kind of an interesting topic, I think, also.
It is an interesting topic, and one of the things, as like I said recently, I filmed a television show called Haunting Australia, which is going to be airing next year in a few places around the world. I got to work with one of the world's best, which is a man named Rob Demarest, who was on Ghost Hunters International. And I learned so much from him and from my friend Garav and the whole cast, really, Ian, Ray, and Raylene. But one of the things that I remember Rob saying to me is he used to use a red torch instead of a white light torch. And the reason he did it was because the rods in your eyes actually, when a white light comes on, I can't remember exactly what his definition was, but I think he said they expand further and they take longer to contract. So, when you walk into a dark room after you've been in the sun and it takes so long for it to get to a level where you can see again, using a red torch, that doesn't happen because it's the same color as those particular rods in your eyes. It doesn't affect them.
Oh, that's interesting. And the older you get, the longer it takes. So that's why a lot of people who are older have such a hard time driving at night with those white lights. So it's really, I think there's some kind of a key to that, where people have overdeveloped eyesight that can see spirit and things like that. There's something in there that is connected with the pineal or the pituitary that on some kind of either hormonal, like acting with a hormone, or there's something about how they're made. The structure of the eye is different. How they process the information is different. There's something about that because not everybody can see it, but my aunt is like that. So my aunt has the same kind of gift like that I do, but just in a different type of way. And I bet you if you took us and killed us and dissected us, that our eyes would probably be the same, or the way that the brain works. You know, we've inherited that. And so it's an interesting thing. I think paranormal investigation work is going to be totally different. I think you're on the cutting edge of it because you're thinking about things really, really different. That makes you stand out. I'm tired of seeing the same old way. There's got to be some better explanations. And I think, Alan, you and your team and everything that you're doing, you're headed that way. And you're intelligent about it. You know, you're using your brain and the feelings and everything else that goes with it. I think that's really, really important. And I'm so glad to know you. I am so everything you do, you know, that I see you do, I just feel so proud. I don't know why. I just feel like, you know, hey, look at that. Look what he's doing. That's so interesting. So you've got a big fan over here with Renee Richards and the Renee Richards Show. And if you ever want to come on or you ever want to, you know, advertise anything or talk about anything, you just let me know, okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
You're always welcome. You and Karen or...
I definitely will come back on. You just let me know when, and if I'm free, I'll jump on and have a chat. Always happy to.
It'd be fun. It'd be fun.
And like I've promised you for many years, one day I'll get to America and we'll actually meet in person.
I told my husband, I said, well, can we go to Australia? I've always wanted to go. We will, and it's going to be fun. It's just going to be a wonderful, wonderful time. You're a great person, and I just believe in both of you, Karen and you. I believe in your website, what you're doing, the paranormal investigations, and I want to encourage people also to go to YouTube and watch some of his videos. He has some great videos with some great, the one, I wrote down the one that I really, my mouth was open. It was the one that was on the fence.
Oh, the fence sitter, yes.
Yes, that one. I think that's really interesting. You have great pictures on your website. And you have, if you connect to Alan, you have a question, he'll answer you. I mean, he doesn't just ignore people.
I always try and reply where I can. Sometimes it may take a little bit longer than people would expect, but you know, we do get busy. We do have jobs and lives away from this, but we do try and reply to everyone.
Yeah, you guys are really, really good, both of you, about that. So I want to thank you very much for taking the time. I know it's 4 a.m. in Australia.
5 a.m. now.
Yeah, now it's 5. And I know Karen had gotten up with you, too. And I was just like, oh, my gosh, I never get up at 4 o'clock. The only time I get up at 4 o'clock is back in the old days when I was going to go fishing or something. And I don't fish anymore, so... I'm like, forget that. But thank you. I appreciate it so much. And I just love both of you. And I can't wait to see what's coming in the future. I really can't.
Thanks for having me.
Okay.
An awesome Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And we're going to talk to you again. You take care. Bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.